Okay, so you want to own a real estate business. You have seen the signs on the highway. You have watched the agents drive around in nice cars. You have heard the stories about people who bought a few houses and retired by 40. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you have been doing the math. Here is the problem. The math most people are doing is wrong. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. Because what you see on the outside of the real estate industry, the sold signs, the open houses, the 5% commission on a $500,000 home, has almost nothing to do with what the business actually looks like from the inside. And the gap between those two pictures is where most people lose everything. Before we talk about money, we need to agree on what we are even talking about. Because real estate business is not one thing. It is at least 7 completely different businesses, each with a different cost structure, a different risk profile, and a different way of making money. The first model is a brokerage. This is the company that contracts with agents to represent buyers and sellers. The brokerage takes a cut of every commission. Low starting capital, but very unpredictable income. The second model is direct property investment. You buy buildings. You hold them. You wait for them to go up in value while a tenant pays down your mortgage. The third model is property management. You do not own the buildings. You just run them for someone else, collecting rent, handling repairs, screening tenants, and you charge the owner a monthly percentage fee for doing it. This is the model that generates the steadiest income of all. The fourth model is real estate development. You buy land or a rundown building, you build or rebuild something, and you sell it at a much higher price than what you spent. This is where the biggest profits live, and the biggest disasters. Then there is wholesaling, house flipping, and rental portfolio investing. Each one operates on different numbers. Each one will destroy you in a completely different way if you go in without understanding the economics. Most people who say they want to start a real estate business mean a brokerage. So that is where we begin. But by the end of this, you will understand why the smartest people in this industry eventually move away from selling and toward owning. When a house sells, the money does not simply move from buyer to seller. It splinters across an entire ecosystem of businesses before anyone takes home a dollar. Say a house sells for $500,000 in a typical American market. The moment that sale closes, a chain reaction begins. First, the seller's existing mortgage gets paid off completely. That money goes straight to the bank, not to the seller, not to the agent. Then governments take their cut. In the United Kingdom, stamp duty land tax on a home at this price reaches 5% under standard bands. In parts of Australia, the state land transfer duty averages between 3 and 5% of the transaction value, and foreign buyers pay an additional surcharge reaching 9% on top of that. Then professional services collect their fees. The title insurance company guarantees clean legal ownership and charges between $1,000 and $3,000. The closing attorney takes $500 to $1,500. The appraiser who verified the home's value earlier took between $300 and $1,000. Then come the real estate commissions. After the August 2024 National Association of Realtors settlement, the average total commission in the United States sits at approximately 5.7% of the sale price. On a $500,000 home, that is $28,500, split between 2 brokerages representing the buyer and the seller, and every person who touched the transaction: the lender, the inspector, the stager, the photographer, the contractor who fixed the broken step. All collected their piece before the seller saw a $1 transaction. A dozen businesses getting paid. Now imagine you want to be one of those businesses. Here is what it actually costs to get started. Licensing and regulatory compliance comes first. A brokerage owner must hold an active state broker's license, requiring pre-licensing education, a state examination, and formal corporate registration fees ranging from $500 to $3,000. Then errors and omissions insurance, professional liability coverage that protects you when a transaction goes wrong and a client sues. Budget between $800 and $1,500 per year, then the office. A traditional brokerage needs a visible, professional physical location to attract agents and clients. Commercial office space in a mid-tier American city runs $2,000 to $8,000 per month depending on location and square footage. Then technology. A customer relationship management system to track leads costs between $25 and $300 per user per month, with setup often exceeding $10,000 upfront. A professional website with a live property search feed runs $1,500 to $5,000 to build. The full enterprise technology stack, accounting software, document management, electronic signature platforms, adds another several thousand annually. Then marketing. Digital advertising, social media campaigns, physical signage, and local brand building for a startup brokerage realistically runs between $6,000 and $24,000 in the first year alone. Professional photography and drone video production for listings runs $3,000 to $10,000 annually. Legal fees for corporate formation and ongoing compliance add another $1,000 to $5,000. Total first-year capitalization for a legitimate brokerage operation, somewhere between $50,000 and $120,000 before a single transaction closes. And here is what finishes most new businesses. A standard real estate sales cycle takes between 180 and 360 days, from first contact with a potential client to a closed transaction. That means every dollar spent on advertising in January may not produce a commission check until October. Every monthly expense incurs from day one. The revenue does not arrive for months. The businesses that fail, and the majority of them do, fail because they run out of cash before the first deal closes. Not because the business model was wrong, because they did not enter with enough capital to survive the gap. The structural cash flow mismatch of real estate is one of the most dangerous in any service industry. Compounding this is the cost of finding a client in the first place. Real estate is one of the most saturated service industries that exists. In almost every major city, thousands of licensed agents and hundreds of brokerages compete for the same buyers and sellers. This competition drives digital advertising costs dramatically higher. In competitive markets, a single click from someone searching for homes on Google can cost between $5 and $15 in paid search advertising. Since only 1 to 2% of website visitors ever become actual paying clients, the company must generate between 50 and 100 clicks, at $5 to $15 each, just to find a single potential lead. And most of those leads require months of nurturing before they close a transaction. On top of this, new brokerages face what can simply be called the trust deficit. When someone is about to spend the largest amount of money they have ever spent in their life, they do not choose the brokerage that opened last year. They choose the name they have seen for 20 years. They choose the company their parents used. They choose the brand that shows up on every corner. Breaking through that brand trust barrier requires sustained marketing spending that a brand new business can barely afford, while also paying rent, salaries, and software subscriptions every single month. The only path through this phase is entering with a cash reserve large enough to cover every monthly expense for at least 12 months without earning a dollar of revenue. Assuming a business survives the early losses, here is where the revenue actually comes from, and which streams matter most for long-term health. Sales commissions are the most visible source. The brokerage collects a percentage of every transaction, retains a portion of that commission, and distributes the rest to the representing agent. On a standard $500,000 home with a 2.88% listing commission, the brokerage collects $14,400. At a 30% retention split, the brokerage keeps $4,320. After franchise royalty fees and overhead allocation, the net profit per deal is often under $2,000. Across 100 transactions per year, the brokerage might generate $200,000 in gross retained commission. Against overhead costs of $120,000 to $200,000 annually, the margin is thin. Rental placement fees add a second stream. When a landlord needs a tenant, the brokerage markets the vacancy, screens applicants, and executes the lease. The standard fee equals 1 full month's rent. On a $2,000 per month apartment, that is $2,000 for a few weeks of work. Property management fees are where the real defensive income lives. A management company charges 8 to 12% of the gross monthly rent to oversee daily operations, tenant relations, and maintenance coordination for a property owner. These fees arrive every single month, whether or not any homes are selling. A brokerage managing 100 properties at an average rent of $2,000 per month, charging a 10% fee, collects $20,000 monthly, $240,000 per year, completely independent of the sales market. Beyond these core streams sit referral fees from other markets, commercial leasing advisory work, developer partnership agreements, and direct investment management, each adding another layer of income that does not evaporate when the sales cycle slows. The most profitable real estate companies build multiple streams flowing simultaneously. They are never entirely at the mercy of a single market condition. Let us trace exactly what happens to the money inside a single standard transaction. A house sells for $500,000. The total commission at 5.7% is $28,500. The listing brokerage receives $14,400. The buyer's brokerage receives the remaining $14,100. From the listing brokerage's $14,400, the business retains 30%, $4,320, and pays the listing agent 70%, which is $10,080. After a 6% franchise royalty of $259 and the allocation of shared overhead costs, the brokerage's actual profit on this single transaction sits somewhere between $500 and $2,000. On the agent's side, the $10,080 gross split gets eroded quickly. Professional photography and drone production for the listing cost $1,500. The paid digital advertising that brought this specific client in cost $1,200 to attribute. Fuel, vehicle wear, and licensing fees add another $550. That leaves $6,330 before taxes. After self-employment taxes and federal income taxes, which for a freelance agent in the United States total approximately 30%, the agent takes home roughly $4,431 on a $500,000 transaction. Less than 1% of the sale price reaches the hands of the person who spent 6 months earning it. This is not an argument that agents are underpaid. It is an argument that the individual transaction model, at its core, is far thinner than it appears from the outside. Real wealth in this industry is built through volume, recurring streams, and eventually direct asset ownership. There is a persistent myth that the luxury market is the shortcut to wealth. Sell bigger houses, earn bigger commissions. The reality is more complicated. Luxury properties priced above $5 million in premier markets like Miami, Beverly Hills, or London have a median number of days sitting on the market that regularly exceeds 150 days. The most exclusive properties can sit for a year or longer. In contrast, mid-market homes priced between $300,000 and $600,000 in active American cities turn over in a median of 53 days. In high-demand markets like Austin or Denver, that drops to under 3 weeks. This gap matters because the holding costs on a luxury listing are significant. A luxury estate requires continuous upkeep, professional landscaping, climate control, regular cleaning, security monitoring, and in many cases, designer staging furniture rented month after month. Insurance premiums on a $10 million property are not trivial. If the property carries bridge financing or development debt, the interest is compounding every single day it sits unsold. And the marketing costs for luxury properties exist in a completely different category. Selling a luxury estate requires architectural film production, a custom website, high-end print editorial, private preview events for high-net-worth buyers, and international distribution. A single luxury listing's marketing budget can exceed $25,000 before one buyer walks through the door. The buyer pool is also narrow and highly sensitive to economic sentiment. Affluent buyers pause when global markets become uncertain. They see no urgency. They wait. During recessions or periods of high interest rates, the luxury market can freeze almost entirely. Meanwhile, a mid-market-focused brokerage closes deals consistently throughout the year driven by buyers whose life events, job changes, growing families, divorces, relocations do not wait for perfect economic conditions. Volume and consistency almost always beat headline commission sizes. The real estate industry is, at its core, a customer acquisition business. The property is almost secondary. The primary product being sold is access to trust. The confidence that when someone is about to make the largest financial decision of their life, they are in capable hands. Building that trust costs money. Significant money. A scaled real estate agency must run campaigns across multiple channels simultaneously. Facebook and social media advertising to capture awareness among people not yet actively searching. Google pay-per-click advertising at $5 to $15 per click in competitive markets. Local billboard and physical signage to build neighborhood brand recognition. Open house logistics including signage, printed materials, and digital follow-up sequences. The national average customer acquisition cost in residential real estate is approximately $791 per paying client. A real estate website might attract 10,000 unique visitors in a month. Of those 10,000 people, between 1–2% will ever become actual clients. The company must fund enough advertising to generate hundreds of leads just to find a single transactions. Across a brokerage doing 50 annual transactions, the total cost of acquiring those clients through paid channels can reach $40,000 per year or more just in direct advertising spend. And that spend does not guarantee closings. It guarantees the opportunity to begin a relationship that may or may not convert 6 to 12 months later. After the property is found, the inspection passes, the lender approves the financing, and the deal does not fall apart for any of the dozen reasons deals fall apart. This is the trap that drains early-stage real estate businesses. They measure success by lead volume instead of by cost per closed transaction. A brokerage can spend heavily on digital advertising, generate hundreds of online inquiries per month, and still finish the year deeply unprofitable because the conversion rate from lead to closed deal is so low and the cycle so long that the marketing budget is gone long before the commissions arrive. The only sustainable escape from this cycle is reputation. A referral from a satisfied past client arrives with built-in trust and costs virtually nothing to acquire. Experienced agents with 16 or more years in the business derive an average of 41% of their annual transactions from past clients and 28% from referrals, according to National Association of Realtors data. That is nearly 70% of their business coming in at near zero acquisition cost. The financial difference is decisive, and it builds every year. Even with strong revenue and growing reputation, real estate business owners face a constant parade of costs that compress margins month after month. These costs are the ones that do maximum damage during slow periods. Commercial office rent does not pause because the housing market softens. Staff salaries continue regardless of transaction volume. Software subscriptions bill monthly, whether the system is generating deals or sitting idle. Professional liability insurance is paid annually without exception. For a mid-sized brokerage, basic monthly fixed overhead, rent, utilities, base salaries, software, and insurance easily reaches $10,000 to $25,000 per month. That is $120,000 to $300,000 per year. That must be covered before the brokerage earns any profit at all. Then there are the variable costs that catch new owners off guard. Failed deals represent one of the most painful. Real estate contracts are fragile instruments loaded with contingency clauses. A buyer can back out if the home inspection reveals unexpected problems. A lender can kill the transaction if the appraisal comes in below the purchase price. A title search can surface legal issues that void the entire deal. When a contract collapses after weeks of coordinated work, the brokerage loses the commission it was counting on. But it does not get back the money already spent on photography, marketing, transaction coordination, and agent time. Every failed deal is a net cash loss. In a busy brokerage, failed transactions can account for 15 to 30% of all contracts written in a given year. Legal disputes add another layer. In a business handling the largest financial decisions most people ever make, disagreements happen regularly. A buyer who feels the property's condition was misrepresented. A seller who believes the listing price was set too low and cost them equity. A landlord disputing a tenant's security deposit. Each of these situations requires legal counsel, and in the United States, professional liability claims against real estate agents and brokerages have been rising steadily. Every dispute, regardless of outcome, costs legal fees, and the distraction alone pulls the business owner away from generating revenue during some of the most critical weeks of a transaction season. The risks in this business are structural. They tend to arrive without much warning. The most dangerous is an interest rate shock. Real estate purchases are almost universally financed through borrowed money, so any significant increase in borrowing costs directly reduces the number of buyers who can afford to transact. The post-pandemic rate cycle that began in the United States in 2022 demonstrated this. As the Federal Reserve raised interest rates to combat inflation, the standard 30-year fixed mortgage rate climbed from under 3% to above 7%. The monthly payment on a $400,000 mortgage at 3% is approximately $1,686. At 7%, that same mortgage costs $2,661 per month, nearly $1,000 more every single month. Same buyer, same home, same price. Millions of potential buyers were effectively priced out of the market overnight. Existing homeowners locked into sub 3% rates refused to sell because selling meant giving up those rates forever. Transaction volumes dropped sharply. Brokerages that had expanded aggressively during the low-rate boom found themselves with enormous overhead and dramatically reduced revenue. House flipping was hit particularly hard. The average gross return on investment for house flips slid to a 17-year low of 25.5% in 2025, down from historical peaks exceeding 50% during 2016 and 2021. Margin compression forced many independent operators out of the market entirely. Regulatory changes add another layer of unpredictability. Wholesaling laws have tightened across multiple states. Foreign buyer surcharges in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom have cooled international investment flows. Rental control legislation in cities across both countries has altered the economics of property management businesses in ways that landlords did not anticipate. The real estate industry is changing faster right now than at any point in its history. Proprietary technology and artificial intelligence platforms are eliminating categories of manual labor that have historically defined the business. Industry data indicates that artificial intelligence tool adoption among property management companies jumped from 20% in 2024 to 58% in 2025. More than 88% of major real estate investors and institutional landlords are now actively piloting generative artificial intelligence systems. Machine learning algorithms can now analyze hundreds of data variables: historical sales, school ratings, transit infrastructure, zoning changes, regional employment trends, and generate pricing models that forecast property appreciation trajectories more precisely than human analysts can. Automated customer management systems track a potential buyer's behavior across an entire website visit and trigger personalized follow-up campaigns timed precisely to that buyer's demonstrated interests. Artificial intelligence assistants handle inbound inquiries 24 hours a day, qualifying leads and booking property showings without any human involvement. In property management, smart building sensors detect equipment problems before failure occurs, automatically generating maintenance work orders and scheduling contractors without a property manager picking up the phone. The positions disappearing from the industry include junior leasing agents, transaction processors, manual document handlers, and basic customer service staff. The positions expanding are high-value relationship advisors and negotiation specialists, roles where human judgment and local knowledge remain irreplaceable by any algorithm. The real estate businesses that dominate the next decade will be the ones investing in this technology today, using it to reduce overhead and scale service quality simultaneously. The path from a local brokerage to a billion-dollar real estate enterprise runs through one fundamental shift: stopping the selling of time and starting the selling of systems. Traditional brokerages sell time. An agent closes a deal. The brokerage takes a split. The transaction ends, the income ends, and the cycle repeats. There is a structural ceiling to how fast you can grow when revenue depends entirely on individual transactions your agents can close in any given month. The companies that reach the highest levels of scale do it by franchising their systems instead of their labor. Keller Williams and RE/MAX do not own the local offices their agents work from. They franchise the brand, the training systems, the technology platforms, and the operational playbooks to independently owned operators, collecting recurring monthly fees from every single agent in the network, regardless of whether any individual agent closes a transaction that month. Keller Williams operated with approximately 169,000 agents globally as of early 2025. Even modest monthly technology and royalty fees per agent, collected across a network that size, generate a significant, predictable income stream completely disconnected from whether any particular house sells on any particular day. At the largest institutional scale, CBRE Group generated over $40 billion in annual revenue as of early 2026. Their Global Workplace Solutions division manages physical office portfolios and facilities operations for multinational corporations on multi-year contracts, generating revenue every month regardless of what residential markets are doing. The businesses that become empires are the ones that build recurring revenue. Fees arriving monthly from systems operating without direct involvement at a scale no individual agent or single office could ever produce. Here is the honest answer. It depends entirely on which business you are running and whether you understand the economics before you start. The advantages are genuine. The income ceiling is essentially unlimited. There is no structural cap on what a well-run real estate platform can generate. The business scales through systems and people in ways most service businesses cannot replicate. And direct property ownership creates generational wealth through compounding appreciation, tax-sheltered cash flow, and debt paid down quietly by someone else's monthly rent. But the risks are equally real. Early cash burn can destroy a business before it gains traction, and the window before that happens is shorter than most new operators expect. The business is intensely sensitive to interest rate movements and economic conditions that are entirely outside any owner's control. Customer acquisition is expensive, the sales cycle is long, failed deals cost real money, and the competition from well-funded legacy brands makes breaking into established markets genuinely difficult. The dividing line between failure and success in this industry almost always comes down to whether the owner entered understanding that the commissions are just the beginning. The businesses that build something lasting use brokerage income to fund property management portfolios. They use property management fees to survive slow seasons without touching reserves. They reinvest transactional profits into direct asset ownership structured around intelligent tax planning. They build their reputation year over year until referrals come in faster than any advertising campaign can produce leads. The biggest fortunes in real estate are not built by selling one expensive property. They are built by mastering the economics of an entire business, and then using that business to build something that keeps paying long after the last deal closes.